What's going on, everybody? Core Conversations. Forgot my headphones. And we are live. So what's going on, everybody? Happy Canada Day to you in Canada. Always sending our love and respect to our First Nations, Indigenous peoples who were here long before us. So respect, honor, and acknowledge you at all points. So here we are, and it is a complete freestyle day. What's going on, Lori? Thanks for joining us this morning. We're gonna wait for some more people to come join us in the chat. Olivia, how you doing? So, Core Conversations podcast. Let's try this again. Core. Like, subscribe, and share. Mr. Phils, how you been, man? Coach Robin Renee, how are you? It's a freestyle. I don't know, Martin, if you are free and you want to join me on the screen, or Coach Robin, if you want to join us, I'd love to have you both in the chat. That'd be amazing. How's it going, Carrie? Just trying to find my notes from yesterday. Had a great chat with Super Kate yesterday. Lori Watson earlier this week. Had some great guests all week, honestly. It's been so good. Right. Coach Robin Renee, are you free as well to join us? I'm going to bring Martin Phils in right now, but you're also welcome to jump in.
Work. All you see is my work. Let me flip this camera around. Good morning. Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day to you.
How have you been?
I'm good. This week has been, Core Conversation has been fun. Lots of guests, lots of interactions. Work-wise, actually, not that busy. And actually, in good in that sense. Like, I had people vacationing because, this a short week and stuff like that. So last week of school, people just hightailing out of town. So it's been good. We get a lot of work done. It's been productive, somewhat.
No, that's great, man. I was just looking the other day, and it wasn't a complaint, more of a stupid whine, but I was saying, I have 29 or 30 hours of instruction a week, and starting on the 4th, I have to try to shoehorn in another 5.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I'm going a bit nuts, but that's why you don't see me so much.
Yeah, it's Pat is going on.
It's just so nice to kind of cruise in and say Happy Canada Day to you today without too much stress. Well, I have some guests coming this afternoon with.
Anything else going on for the weekend?
No, I'm going to keep it quiet. I've been keeping my weekends generally quiet because there's no bandwidth for anything else except cleaning the house.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
And that's it. So cleaning the house, reading a book, sitting outside if the weather's good.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was talking to my son yesterday and just saying I said this actually on the show yesterday too, about procrastination and how yesterday had a ton of cancellations. And I thought, it was just a low key day. And then I saw one of my posts from 11 years ago saying that I was doing the exact same thing, procrastinating, just looking at Facebook. And I think that it's that middle of the year, midpoint where you just need to just press the reset button, reevaluate, pause for a moment, sort of thing. I don't know how you're feeling, but
No, well, no, I didn't. Didn't have an opportunity. All Thursday morning, I started with my first client at 8 o'clock in the morning, and or 8:30 in the morning, and then went working straight through one after the other until 12:30.
Yep.
Came home, and because I have guests coming down today, started cleaning again. Even though I cleaned on the weekend, started cleaning again. And then I had a meeting, and then I had a class to teach, and then I went back to cleaning. And then at 9 o'clock, I finally plopped myself down in front of the television to watch Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. And I said,
And
I've
shut it
had it.
down.
I'm done. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
And now I'm up. I'm taking it easy this morning for a little bit, but there's going to be a wild set of cooking coming on soon. And, just
Nice.
going through Instagram. I haven't really had a chance to go through
Yeah.
a lot of Instagram except for, people who are important like you and
Thank you.
looking at your feeds and everything else. But I just, you know what? Now that everything is back, and I'm a hybrid, by the way. I'm not 100% in
Yeah.
person. I'm still
Yeah.
very hybrid, which in itself now has its own problems because I'm wondering how can I be two places at once,
Yes.
which is kind of getting there. And
Teaching
I'm
virtual
trying to
classes
be
from your car, sort of.
almost,
Yeah.
but that's the other thing. I'm, with the way, well, between gas prices, and it isn't that I can't afford to fill up, but that and the environmental um, stance that I kind of took at the beginning of the pandemic when we saw everything just clean up and go down. I rarely use my car.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are not Toronto centered, sometimes Torontonians think we're the center of the universe, but you're not in the Toronto area. When you're in midtown or downtown, transit is very, very good. It's more or less reliable.
Yeah.
So I'm a 15-minute walk from a subway station. I have
There
a
you go.
bus that's 2 blocks away that runs every 12 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's the time that it can take me to walk to the subway station almost. So I'd rather get the exercise in and walk. And I'm
Yeah.
a 10-minute walk from a tram line, a streetcar line, right? So
Right.
I,
Right.
I'm really, really well served.
Right.
And if I walk
Yeah.
north in the opposite direction, at the end of the year, I'll have a two-ride train to the airport
Right.
with
Yeah.
the Eglinton line opening up, and then there's a new station going in Weston at Mount Dennis, so
There you go.
I can get to
Well,
the airport.
yeah. Well, and
So I'm in a
even
good place for that, but it means that definitely can't teach on the subway train. That's for sure.
yeah.
There's no Wi-Fi in our subways, unfortunately. Our subways are a little bit behind that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. See, Coach Robin Renee's point, her post is about getting over the mid-year hump. Yeah,
yeah,
that's that's it. It snuck up on me, Robin. I have to say, it really did. I was like, why? What? Yeah, yeah,
feel fortunate, you two, Robin and Martin, that you have mid-year humps.
mhm,
Right? For me,
yeah,
it's wasn't a hump. I was pushed off a bloody cliff into a very, very deep pool of stuff that I have to,
yeah.
continue to negotiate through the summer. I don't know. I might be skeletal remains by September when again I need to be kind of regenerate
Ready for it
myself
ramping
and be
up.
ready for that wave. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm thinking about that too from my campaign perspective too, right? Like September, October, some of the busiest months in our industry, and also that's going to be the election is October 24th, so
Right?
it's gonna be I'm gonna have to scale back and ramp up at the same time.
Have you gotten any polling about where you are sitting right now or
No, there's nothing along those lines for the municipal that I know of. There's still people who are registering. So another former candidate put his name in the mix as well. So
oh
I don't know.
wow.
It doesn't faze me. It's a really interesting storyline. For those who don't know, I'm running for city council in Mississauga, Ward 9, which is Meadowvale Air Mills. Hi, Sonia. What's going on?
Is there an
And
incumbent in your ward, Martin?
is there what, sorry?
Is
No,
there an
there's
incumbent?
no the incumbent. Well, the lady who has been in that position for the last 31 years, Pat Sato, is endorsing me. So she has been mentoring me over the last 2 years and just been a great resource and very, very aware. Like of all the counselors, and this, I'm sure the replay will come with us at some point. When we did all of our work last year and the year before that around anti-Black racism and Black civic engagement and all those different things with the Mayor's Black Caucus, of all the city councilors, she was the only person who attended every single one, like genuinely interested and just advocating and learning more and all those different things. So when the different communities are saying, well, what are we doing about representation in the city? She's there. Well, there's a young man that I'm working with right now. Like we're thinking generationally with these things. So she's trying to answer those questions because, this area is fantastic and supporting, but at the same time, it's not a reflection of the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they're trying to find that balance. And she's, as she's, finishing off her career, she's trying to ensure that, she's saying, well, look, here is somebody, this is important to us. I'm here, I'm doing all these things.
And
And
work continues with you,
the
right?
work continues with me, right?
Mm. That's
Yeah.
good. That's great that you have a good handoff that way. So I was
Well,
keeping my fingers crossed for you. So
yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's funny. And Sonia, if you want, give us a thumbs up if you want to join us here, on screen. That'd be great. Um, One of the things we talked about a long time ago was cashing in on your privilege.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nikki's Taylor Stewart and I were talking about that, like cashing in on your privilege. There's people who have a voice, have a seat at the table, who aren't our skin tone, and instead of taking advantage of it, they're cashing in on that to make room for other people. And I love the way that was said, and I like seeing when people are doing that, where they have that privilege, they have that opportunity, and they're cashing in on it. They're saying, okay, since I have your ear, here's this person, here's this opportunity, this is this whatever, right? That whole like support, amplify, connect thing, which I'm using. I asked Jen Zafino if I could use that, and I'm actually using it as part of my campaign to say, like, how are we supporting, amplifying, connecting those who are trying to do the work, right? So I think that all those things are pretty cool when you see it happening in real life,
No, I think cashing in on privilege is great. We don't have enough people who do that.
Nope.
And really what ends up happening is that for those of us of color who have privilege, we're the ones who do a lot of cashing in and bringing people to the front and so on to ride along with us. But
Yes.
but the mainstream society, white society, is still catching up on that. So when you find somebody who is like that and thinks that way, gold,
Cool.
solid.
Absolutely. Did you see on LinkedIn? I reposted it. Wes Hall's post about being the first and being the only.
Yes, I read that. That
Excellent.
had lots of resonance with me, man. Because
Yeah.
when I think of myself and I think of my parents and everything else, lots of pioneering stuff. Being the only black person in the room, lots of time.
Yes.
Sometimes it still happens.
Yeah, but and he covered it from so many different angles. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, do you like? I don't know how much you can say about Wes Hall. I just know that he is a Canadian entrepreneur, finance
Yeah,
guy who is
that's about all I know about him as
okay.
well.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
his book just came out. Actually, I want to read the book. Apparently, it's pretty tearjerker of a book. But so he is on Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. I can't remember which one it is.
Mm.
Thanks, Laurie, for joining us. Definitely, we'll get you in at some point. So Wes Hall, so he for the first time in the 15 years of the Dragon's Den show, which is like an entrepreneur sales pitch show, which I was on one time and got lit up, which is a whole
Yes.
separate story. So he talked about being a dragon. He's going to be one of the guest hosts or one of the judges on it, and saying being the first and being the only are two significant things. And we're talking about being the first. Make sure that you're not the only. Make sure you open the door for the next person.
Right.
When you're the only, don't celebrate being the only.
No, you have to
Recognize that that's your point to initiate. That's
to
initiation of
open the door.
change, to open the door. And then he flips it and says, if you're hiring the first, don't pat yourself on the back.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you realize that you're just initiating the change for those others to be there, so they're not the only. So the way he hit it from every angle is just not just like, look at me. It's like when you're hiring the first, make sure that they're not the only.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is good
Exactly.
stuff, man.
But again, as I said, it means for a lot of us who have had some degree of privilege, right, that we're there. One of our duties is to make sure that, we have the foot in the door. We make sure that we keep the door open,
Yes,
right, so that other
right.
people can start populating the ranks. It's not just about us being the first. So no, that article really, really rang true. So when I saw it on your LinkedIn, I said, yeah, this is. I think I gave you a heart or a thumbs
I
up or
think
something
so.
on
Yeah,
it
yeah, I think
because
so.
I
I'm
was
gonna.
saying to myself, oh man, this is so true. Now I have to say about my parents, they tried very hard to keep the door open.
Mhm.
Um, but I think given place and time for them, that was a lot harder to do. That door was a lot heavier
Okay.
for them to do, but they did. They did a lot of that kind of not only being pioneer, but then saying, okay, well, you can do this too.
Yes.
Sometimes it starts with family. And sometimes, you have to kind of reach for those friends to
Right.
get them there to help hold the door open. But yes,
Yes.
I just want to read what Sonia said here.
Yes. So yeah. So I'll
Pat
read.
themselves on the back, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
read
and
just
they're always
two.
patting themselves for the first, and then they kind of parade the first around all over the
Mhm.
place. But
Right.
where's the rest of it? And even the way
Absolutely.
they treat the first may not be the best.
True. I'm gonna just let me read the comment just because sometimes on the replay they don't come back up. So Sonya's
Hmm.
saying some orgs still pat themselves on the back even after there have been a first. I'm just saying, and I think that's what Wes was alluding to is like just because you got the first, that doesn't mean you've arrived. That means you've started
You
the process
started,
of
yeah.
change.
It's not a rival, not by any stretch of the. It's more like you just washed up on that beach after a very hard time at sea,
Yes.
sometimes being shipwrecked, right? And you're crawling out of the water. This is
Right.
not, jump up time. It's time to start looking back and seeing who else you can rescue from that too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Oh,
I like it though. I mean, I like the spin on it. I like the positive spin in the sense that like, okay, much like we do here in this space is like there are not just people, but qualified people, competent people, skilled people that are out there, right? So we're not
mm.
just looking for the first heartbeat. We're looking for the first like equally skilled, underratedly skilled. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Well, not even
person.
equally skilled. What about better skilled? There are a lot of better skilled people who are totally ignored, and
Absolutely.
we have to
Absolutely.
put them up to the front of the line.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, changing subjects real quick, just because I know I don't want to take your whole morning.
No, no.
A-
Cool.
Ageism.
Okay. So yes, I'm 2 years removed from 60. What's your point?
Okay, I threw the word out and you went old. What if we go young with ageism?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Listen, those of us born between 1960 and 1972, uh, as a generational group, they even stole our name, X. Okay, but let's stretch it up to 75 so that we don't leave too many people out, right?
I'm
But they
75,
even,
but
yes, no, fair enough. And I have 75, 76 who I would consider to be the same. But we're one of the smallest populations when it comes to generational groups, right? We're certainly a lot smaller than the baby boomers that came before.
right.
We're much smaller than Generation Y and Z that have come afterwards. Um, when we were progressing, you think of just coming out of university in the 80s and into the 90s, and what happened? There was one of the world's biggest recessions. There were no jobs.
Right.
All the boomers weren't moving on. They're holding on, and many of them still haven't retired,
Right. Yeah.
right? So there's no upward mobility. Many of us went into private practices,
Mhm.
individual work, contract work, all of that sort of stuff. As children, probably we were latchkey kids too, because our
Yep.
parents had to go out to work. So as young children, things that wouldn't be tolerated, in the 80s or 90s, but in the late 60s and 70s, would come home to an empty house, and you're a 7-year-old,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so, or if you're the eldest, then you're also taking care of the younger ones too, picking them up, walking with them from school, and doing
Exactly.
all of that stuff. So I'm gonna say ageism. You know what? It's generationism more than anything else, which has to do with age.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that, there are certain attitudes, maybe in the generation that came before, and certainly reflected in the generations after
Hmm.
their children, that we necessarily don't share, and that puts us out. That makes us outliers sometimes.
Right, right, right. So in the way that that bleeds into our Pilates work, you have people who are younger in the work that are treated like they have nothing to contribute because they don't have this lineage, because they don't have these years of experience in the workforce, all those different things. Whereas, like I said earlier this week, it's like if I was alive then, I would gladly learn from Kathy Grant. But she's not alive when I'm alive. Therefore, I'm learning from the sources that I have, but that's despised because of my youth.
Well, but good Pilates training is good Pilates training, regardless
Right,
of lineage, right?
right.
There are great Kathy Grant lineage people who are teaching wonderful Pilates for everybody to learn from, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
not only that, I mean, yes, lineage is important. I think that we spent a couple of years talking about how important lineages are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but also progression is important too. We have better
True.
understandings now of a lot of biomechanics and biochemistry in terms of how the body responds to certain types of movement.
Right.
And it seems to be clearly demonstrated that the movement patterns in Pilates are some of the healthiest ones.
Yep.
Everybody's on the bandwagon. The Guardian had the other day, a couple of weeks ago, eat your fruits and do Pilates, eat your fruit and vegetables and do Pilates, right? If
Yes.
you want to
Yeah.
have a nice long life, right? So
Right.
and you're dealing with so many lineages then. So you have the Fletcher lineage, you have the Kirsanova lineage, you have Kathy Grant, you have
It
um,
goes on. Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
goes on and on and on and
Yeah.
on and
Yeah.
on and on and on, right? So,
Right.
but again, hopefully everybody, yes, you're trained in the lineage, but then you also pick up on the new biomechanical work.
Hmm.
We didn't talk about fascia in the
Right.
70s. We're talking a lot about it now,
Right. Right.
right? We didn't
Exactly.
talk. So I think that, a well-trained Pilates and movement teacher is a well-trained Pilates and movement teacher, right? And then it's incumbent
Absolutely.
on those individuals to keep their skills up, keep learning. We're always learning. We've said that a million times together too.
Absolutely.
A
Yeah.
good Pilates person is always, and movement person is
Like my dad.
always learning.
Yeah. Hi, Dad. I never had my dad come onto my IG Live here. Very cool.
Oh, your dad is Martin too.
Yes.
Oh, we have a trifecta now. That's
Yes,
a
we
lot.
do. Yes.
So I
um,
don't know if you realize, at least for me. So my Martin comes from. Um, he's not the first black saint. He would be number 3. So
really,
Martin
I don't know
Porres.
any of this. Cool.
So Martin de Porres. He lived in Colombia,
Hmm.
and he was only canonized as a saint in 1962. And my mother, I guess, said, "The next boy, we're that's what you're getting." Right? But the HR and my initials come from my father and my godmother, and then my name comes from my saint's name. But that's it. So,
Oh,
but he lived. Oh, when did he live? I can't remember. His saint's day is the same day as my father's birthday too. So there's a little bit of circular movement
yeah.
there.
Right.
A lot of Martin comes from Martin of Tours. He was a medieval European saint. But
Right.
when people ask me
Interesting.
Martin of Tours, they say no, Martin de Porres.
Right.
Oh, who's that? Well, look him up.
Look
But
them up. I
the
got
the only other black saint that comes to mind. Well, Saint Nicholas is controversial about ethnicity, but he was probably black.
yeah.
But Saint Mauritius, of course,
Yes.
right? And everybody, would see the symbology of his sainthood. Even a pope used his image as as part of a coat of arms, and they mistook it for slavery. I remember that we had a big um, controversy at U of T, and then people realized, well, this image predates any of the slave trade in the way that we see it in North America
Wow.
now, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not about him being a slave, on the contrary, right?
I
So,
actually
and they
vaguely
don't
remember
know,
that.
and that's another thing. I think that as people who are in front, that leads to another point that segues back to what you're saying. As
Mhm.
people who are in front of the line, too, we have to be broad and knowledgeable about what our Black history is, and even Black history in Europe, which is
Yeah,
quite extensive and predates slavery by centuries, right?
yeah, yeah,
Almost a
yeah.
millennia.
Right,
So we have to be very, very, very knowledgeable. And if you're not knowledgeable, you need to learn,
right.
because ignorance is bliss, and ignorance allows a lot of uh, stupidity, whitewashing, all of that sort of stuff to happen, because you know people don't know, and so they could be told any bullshit
Yeah,
and they'll believe it. But if you know, then you're less likely to believe the bullshit. So
right. Maybe last talking point, Canada Day.
sure. Uh you
You
saw
know,
did you see my story that I put up
no, I want
with
to look at
with
it.
the with the MPP,
No, I
Indigenous
didn't.
MPP? He summed it up perfectly.
Okay, cool.
So he says that some people are going to have difficulty celebrating Canada Day,
Right.
and his wish is that people, acknowledge Canadian First Nations, and we work towards reconciliation, and that
Hmm.
everybody can enjoy Canada Day.
Yes.
Because, despite everything, Canada is still a great nation. However, we have these problems,
Right.
and not just for us to sit back and say, oh, Canada is great, but to say, this is a great place. Come celebrate,
Yes. Acknowledge and
First
celebrate.
Nations and Indigenous people,
Yeah.
and raise them up, and raise up all of the other people who come to this country as well, immigrants and stuff, who also have.
Of
Oh
tourists.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
your father's saying Credit Woodlands. Yes, because
Yeah.
my cousins live in Credit Woodlands, and they
Yeah.
went
You
to St.
mentioned that.
Martin of Tours Parish and St. Martin of Tours
Very cool.
school too, junior middle school or something like that. Yes,
Yeah. I'm gonna look that
yes, in
up.
Credit
Do some
Woodlands.
research on that.
My aunt is not too far away. It's about a 10-minute walk.
I'm definitely gonna research that because I'm actually gonna be part of an oral history of
Hmm.
Mississauga project that they're working on. So I'll probably pick your brain on it, but it's interesting that like they're doing a big project here about the oral history of Mississauga and the black community and all these different things. So they picked up on my two of the stories that I did around
Yes, I remember those.
Sam's Lane and the Cedar Valley Farms and some
Hmm.
other ones. So yeah, so that stuff's coming out. So I'm gonna look at Martin of Tours for sure.
CBC. Well, St. Martin of Tours is the church, right? That it doesn't
Yeah.
really have any black representation. Those had a lot of black parishioners,
Hmm.
including my aunt and my uncle, and my aunt's husband. My uncle was also one of the founders of Caravana. So there's a big tour, a relationship between St. Martin of Tours and
Yeah.
that organization as well too.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, but
So
what
back to Canada.
But Canada Day, yes, no, he just sums it up so brilliantly, and I'm glad that the story still has another 10 hours of life on
Yeah,
Instagram. But I may
I'll
repost it
repost it.
again. That's going to be
Yeah.
my only Canada Day post today. What he says, because it's just so it sums up everything that I think.
Absolutely. And someone said before, some workshop I was in, and they're saying they say like so-called Canada. So they add the phrase so-called to the front of Canada. So so-called Canada. Because First Nations people saying as others came in and called it Canada, it was a nation
Turtle
before
Island,
that.
or
Well, yeah, Turtle Island was all of North America though.
all of North America, yeah. But different, Tekaronto for where we live,
Hmm.
right, is sort of was kind of bastardized into Toronto.
Yeah.
I think if they renamed Dundas Street, I don't know for our international, anybody who's looking this from around the world, one of our main streets is Dundas, and unfortunately that fellow has now been linked to a lot of unsavory activity, particularly with slavery and also mainly slavery, but I think it may have also fed into the relationship with Indigenous people as well too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they want to rename the street, and I think that's my main thing. Don't call it after somebody else. Call it the original place name.
Yeah.
Right? You have so many miles or so many, you have tens of kilometers of road just within Toronto alone to rename to Tekaronto. I think that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
call it by its proper name. I think that's true. That term, so-called Toronto, so-called Canada, it
Yes.
really
So
depends.
so-called Toronto. So-called. So no. So-called Canada. Sorry. Right.
So-called
So-called
Canada,
Canada.
it
Yeah.
really depends because I know that unfortunately, because of intergenerational trauma and stuff too, there's a lot of division within First Nations and not Aboriginal, wrong term, Martin. First Nations and Indigenous people,
Indigenous. Yeah. Yeah.
people here around the attitude towards the name.
Yeah.
You'll find that now I don't want to misspeak. I think that tribes and peoples of the East tend to be more comfortable with the name Canada than let's say the Salish on the West Coast, or the Cree in Alberta, right? They don't feel the same way about the naming.
Mm.
But everybody can agree, at least across Turtle Island. Yes, it includes the United States as well too, but that's for sure. I don't know if Canada's ever. I don't think Canada's going to be renamed.
No.
And that's it. It's not after anybody, which is a good thing,
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
right? You
Can
put
you
you
imagine?
put slap somebody's name on it, and then you're going to find something in the closet. So better.
Yes.
We had for folks again outside of Toronto, one of the universities in Toronto was named after a fellow who's a father of Confederation, but also problematic when it came to residential schools for Indigenous people.
Yes.
The university just decided to rename itself, and now it's called TMU,
University of
Toronto.
Quebec.
Yeah, Toronto Metropolitan University.
Yep.
So they just had the big renaming ceremony not too long ago.
Yep.
So yeah, Canada's complicated.
It
Canada Day
is.
is complicated. I think
It
that any
is.
any colonized place, it's going to be complicated.
Right.
Okay, going even for Trinidad, it's complicated.
Mhm.
There's a lot of complication in Trinidad too, right?
Yes.
Um, and even divisions within the racial groups that now make up Trinidad as a majority, right? It's
Right.
complicated. It's all complicated. Any place where somebody marched in, took it over, slapped a name on it, and then started exploiting it for centuries, it's going to be complicated. I mean, Americans have, or citizens of the United States of America are going to have problems. Going to have problems for a very, very long time because that's extremely complicated.
Right.
And the problem is that unlike Canada and other places, they managed to shovel it under the rug for so long. You can only keep that dirt under the rug for so long before it starts boiling over.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So it's going to be complicated. I don't think that for us as Canadians, though, I don't think that there is no reason to celebrate, but there's a reason also to take pause. I was disappointed that National Indigenous Day for Indigenous Peoples was not a national holiday.
Mm.
It should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, Emancipation Day is a national, or at least is an Ontario holiday, right? And that's
Right.
when we had Caravana.
Right.
So
I would love to go to that. There's a big celebration. Is it Owen Sound that they do it in? They do a huge festival.
yes,
Yeah.
in a few places. Yeah, well, it always sound what 2 hours. Well, now with traffic, 3 hours drive north of here.
Right. Yeah. Such a rich history in that area. Like I've not,
Indeed.
it's only during COVID that we started to just realize how rich that history was. Going to that, that cemetery and just learning about how many people immigrated to that area and were forced to that area and stuff like that. So it's a rich culture in that area. Wow. Good stuff.
It is. It is. Why did you go to the studio today? Why are you broadcasting from the studio instead of home today?
Oh, I have six clients today. 7, 6. Yeah.
The one thing about exercise that I learned is that you have to engender a sense of you know what? Holidays are holidays.
Yes.
right? People have to
Yep.
learn also how to do recreational fitness and stay
Yes.
fit because you
Yeah.
know what? Us poor instructors need holidays too.
Yeah. It's true.
Seriously, we do.
I have people who are like going out of town, and some of the things like this is like the last thing I'm gonna see them for the summer. So I try to just kind of shoehorn one more session in with them and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's what I was
yeah,
doing last week too, but not on Canada Day.
yeah, yeah. Well,
But
yeah, man. So
I can understand that sentiment. Yeah, but people sometimes have to learn how to, you know, they come to us for advice, they come to us for help and movement and making them feel better and so on. But there has to be, I think, a healthy relationship between us and our clients,
yes,
right?
exactly.
Whereby, you know, everybody respects everybody's need for a holiday. Just
Hmm.
because I'm off work doesn't mean that I have to inflict work on somebody else, right?
Right. Yeah,
Let things be closed. Let people be allowed to move around and stuff. I'm,
yeah,
you know, I'm only a small C capitalist, very
yes.
very small C capitalist. So
Too funny. And my wife is mentioning too. I got to pay for her car, so I got some repairs
ah,
I got to
ah,
get done.
ah.
She's only half joking though. Like it's so funny. Just on a side, I could talk cars all day. On a side note, her clutch went on her 91 Cabby,
Uh,
and the pedal went right to the floor. I was like, man, I'm just praying it's the clutch cable and not the clutch. So I'm like, oh, it's got to be the clutch cable. It's got to be a clutch cable.
no, it's the
So
clutch.
reach out, find the part. Car gets towed to the mechanic. The mechanic calls back. Is like, it's a clutch cable. I'm like, yes.
Oh, good.
$30 for a clutch cable, not $1,300 for a clutch.
Dollars for the clutch. Well,
Yeah.
you know, synchromesh you have to have in German cars. I think are synchromesh too. My old cars were also. You have to have a very very light touch on the clutch.
Yeah.
You know,
So
there's
it's
no.
an
If you
old
can't
car too,
find them,
right?
grind
So
them. There's no. That doesn't exist, right?
yeah,
So.
yeah. So fortunately, it's a pretty easy car to work on. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna play with that this afternoon and get that in myself if
How
I
many
can.
speeds is it?
It's
We
a
could talk
five
about
speed.
5
Yes.
speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever worked with a 6 speed before? It's an awesome feeling to drive a 6 speed.
My GTI is.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
good,
Yeah. My
good.
GTI is a 6 speed. So yeah, it's fun. Good times. We have like three manual transmission cars in a world where people don't drive
Yeah, I don't
anything.
even drive a manual transmission car anymore.
Yeah.
In the city, it's just too much stop, start, stop, start. You
Yeah.
know, if in sometimes in the city, I don't even put the car in first. I start it in second because I don't need that much acceleration, and then you know I have to stop anyway.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, no, it's automatic is far better for downtown
Yeah.
Toronto or downtown anywhere.
Yep. Parallel parking. When I lived at Pape and Danforth, parallel parking, standard transmission on those hills around Withrow and stuff like that.
Oh, you were. Oh, yes, south. Well, yes, because Withrow is like that, right?
Yes.
Cape and
Yeah.
Withrow is like because you're going over the old escarpment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
I'm north of that escarpment, so it's always been flat up here, but and then I'd just let the car coast down the hill, save on gas.
yep.
But yeah,
Crazy.
Toronto's a
Awesome,
crazy
man.
place, people. You guys have to come
Yeah.
up and visit. All of our American friends, you have to come up and visit. Come up and visit while the border's still open.
Yes. Speaking of visits, we got to figure out when we're gonna actually connect.
Oh
Still, we
yeah,
have
for
not met
sure.
face to face here,
No,
everybody,
we haven't.
and we're like 30 minutes
And
apart.
now we have to make it a weekend. I'll
Yeah.
probably, or I could have you come down to Hard House if you've never been
Yeah. True. Yeah. I haven't been in a
uh,
long time.
as a guest. Well, boy, it's changed if you haven't been in a long time.
I haven't been there since like my friends were in university there. Actually, I did some courses for my master's degree at Wycliffe. So I was up at the
Ah,
college.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So just
Hard
like
House is right behind you.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
Wycliffe is they're going through a lot of updating in there right now as well too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great campus.
But it's a great campus, and then you have Trinity College right across for all of you. All the flavors of Anglican are there.
Yes. Great library in there too. I used to hang on there all the time. That was like my spot. So
And I've gotten some good books from the Wycliffe bookstore.
Yeah,
Good books on philosophy and biblical analysis. Really, really good. Really, really, really good books there. So
yeah. There you go. My dad's comment there. America will always be complicated because most Americans don't know their history.
that's very true.
Yes,
100%, sir.
yes.
100%. And that becomes a problem for Black Americans in particular because um, and maybe I don't know if Sonia's still here, but she can comment to this a little bit better. And certainly, there are a couple of Americans in our group, so maybe they want to say something about this. But the history becomes fragmented, and it's not unified anymore. And I
Yeah,
think
Phil
that's
Griffin is
part of
still here,
breaking
and
this.
Robin.
That's Yes, and Robin
Yeah,
as well too. Yeah, so it's part of the breaking of Black America by having a history that's so fragmented that you can't piece
right.
anything together.
So splintered.
And
Absolutely.
it's yeah. So and that just causes more disunity.
Right.
But it's deliberate.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
deliberate fragmentation of the history.
Well, if I could bring
Just
that conversation about like just the history a little closer to home, just as I'm doing my campaigning, you start to see people's understanding of their history and their hope associated to their understanding of that history, which makes things even worse. Because there's people who have hope, who understand it and want to do stuff, and there's people who have no hope because they understand history and know that it's not going to get any better.
You're 100% right. And that sort of dichotomy really does divides people a
Absolutely.
lot, and it fractures thing a lot. I mean, I put a story up also yesterday about Tour, and I had with all of the controversy and stuff, I'd totally forgotten that he was born in Port of Spain, Trinidad.
Hmm. I didn't
And
know
he's one
that
of the
story.
big, and
That's
he was one of the biggest, alongside Martin Luther King, he was one of the biggest, uh, people, Black liberation in the United States. He's the one who invented the term Black Power.
oh,
Right.
wow.
Look it up. If you go
Yeah,
to
I will. I saw that.
on
You
on on Instagram, everybody, because I'm such a Trinidad nationalist. One of the stories or one of the groups that I subscribe to is the National Archives TT. You can
hmm
type that in your search, and you can find them up, and they have lots of interesting stories. A lot of Trinis were Pan-Africanists and went over to Africa, helped with the formation of a lot of countries in West Africa.
Yes.
They're honored almost as saints over there, right? And this is in the 20th century,
Right.
so uh, it was a time when Trinidad felt that at least Creole and Black Trinidad historically felt a obligation to help other Black communities around the world and
Interesting.
Africans, and that was because Trinidad had a lot of privilege, even though it was again a British colony, right?
hmm
There were many Black people with a lot of privilege in Trinidad and a lot of high education, had the ability to study at Oxford and all the big universities in Europe and stuff, and
Yes.
then begin to pay it forward with all of and Pan-Africanism is just one of those things that was paid forward. So, but that's an understanding of our history. You know how many Trinis don't know that?
How rich they
How
actually
rich, and
are.
not only that, how pivotal, important in terms of overall world Black history, some of
Yes.
our people have become, right? So, again, understanding your history is just so very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very important. And it comes back to Pilates, because we also have to come back to Pilates. Again,
Yes.
understanding the role of Kathy Grant so
Yep.
early on in the history of our movement practice, so early on. And,
Yes.
between she and Lolita San Miguel,
hmm
right? And the work that they did, right? But
Right.
other lineages tried to whitewash that out. I mean, that history was almost wiped away, and it's now
Right.
come back with a huge resurgence. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. The just and actually a quick shout out to Bassi
mm,
Pilates and just
yes,
I'm
and Rail.
what they just yeah and Rail's doing a fantastic job with the Kathy Grant scholarship that he's been doing. He was good friends with Kathy Grant,
Yes, he was.
and wanted to continue that legacy by offering scholarships. So I have the honor of being on the selection committee for that.
Oh, great, good.
Yeah, so it's been fantastic. So just we just had some time meeting with people and hearing Rail's story behind that, and then just seeing what he's doing. The idea of intentionally continuing the legacy.
You know what would be a great sort of story for you if you can get them all together? Certainly get Misty and Rail, and I think, and maybe the Global Pilates Alliance as well too, in terms, and have a discussion around scholarships.
Yeah,
Because,
right.
I don't think that there's been, at least amongst us black folk and other peoples of color, it really depends on the discipline. I think yoga has made some progress where we haven't quite done so yet. And
Right,
yoga,
right,
there's a lot of problems with yoga. So I'm not
right.
even going to scratch the surface of that. But I think that as black folks in Pilates, that would be a very, very fulsome, and may take a couple of
Yeah.
core
Oh, absolutely.
conversations or a special live or something like that where we get, because I think that is so very, very important.
Absolutely. And I saw that just through the line of questioning and some of the questions that I just like, I didn't have questions written down per se. I'm just writing down the scholarship core conversations thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but some of the natural questions that started to come up for me are how are you going to pay this forward?
Mm-hmm.
And then listening to what they wanted to do when they had their when they've achieved, completing that course. Like, and I was listening for, like we were saying just offline when I rail and others in the room, I was listening for, are you thinking about bricks and mortar? Are you thinking about, like, I mean, what legacy work? Are we thinking small or are we thinking big? And
Mm-hmm.
not to say that bricks and mortar is the gold standard for applies. I've talked about that a million times, and my business is really consulting based, even though I physically have a space right now.
Mm-hmm.
When people have big dreams and big visions, it's enticing for me. So okay, so you want to have a massive space that is a learning hub that has expression for other dance as well as Pilates, and maybe a journalism section and whatever it is. Like, I'm in art, like, so those sort of things. When people start to think bigger and think
Mm-hmm.
community and think those things, that is really the thing that makes me think, okay, well, are we thinking bigger, are thinking legacy, are we thinking, a greater scope of impact than ourselves, right?
Right.
So I was listening for some of those things, right? Because
But it would be hard for Rail, given where he's coming from, to visualize that because he's not one of us. I think that, and all credit to Rail, all credit, but I mean it's from the work of Misty Cawthon to Balance Body. But I think that maybe
yes.
it's time that those of us who are black movement providers come together and start doing that because
Well, okay,
we have to. Well, but
sure.
Martin, it's important that we have to get together and tell our own story,
Absolutely. I'm not
right?
debating that at all. Like, I
No,
totally
no,
agree with
and
that.
I'm not saying that you are, but I'm just making the
Mm-hmm.
point
Yeah.
that it's important for us to get together and tell our own story. And it's not story, but stories. There are a multiplicity of stories, right?
Right, right,
Well,
right,
too, that we get together. And if we can then, I hate to say the word institutionalize, but formalize it
right.
into something a lot more powerful, as you were saying, right? We'll get a lot more bang for the buck. And it will be a
Right.
broader cultural, and even then broader, let me rephrase that. I'm a Canadian, you're a Canadian. Broader multicultural reach into the black communities as well as into other racialized communities as well. But I think that we have to start from our own, black perspectives. And I say that
Yeah.
plural because again,
Plural.
we
Right.
have so many different black perspectives, but to come together. I think it's beginning
Absolutely.
to start. I mean, I'd
I
like
think
to
it
thank
is.
Rail for scholarship work like that, because then it gets more people ready to be able to have then those conversations about bricks and mortar. How do we pay this forward? What do we do? How do we make this right? So we have
Yes.
more people who can participate in that because our generation, you're 40 something soon, right? I'm
47, yeah.
kind of, I'm,
Mhm.
well, late 50 something, right? But we all getting old, soon, and the energy to do all of that work begins to fade after a time. So it's important to gather a lot of the young people into this movement as well, too.
Right, right.
Very, very
Well,
much so.
yeah. So in those situations, I'm looking for the next Real. Like I'm looking for the next person who can have a global impact and a physical space and a reach and all those. I'm looking for those people. Like you mean like so all those things you're saying, yes, from our lens, from our perspective, I think it needs to be there.
Mm,
Uh, you know what I mean? I like that. It's good.
I like that too. And get, uh, black people in high-end dance as well, too. It's not just, and other cultural activities that we do.
Yeah.
So to make it more, again, Pan-African, if you want to use that term.
Right. Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, no, it's a
Absolutely.
it's a good idea. I mean, this is news. I wasn't aware of rail
Yeah.
doing the
Yeah.
scholarship, and I think it's wonderful. Um, and again, but we have to be careful again that and I've just lived through a debate around this too. That what I love about Misty's work, particularly um, through what she's doing with Balanced Body, is it really
Yeah.
comes through black perspectives
Yes.
about approaching people. It isn't the white savior complex again, which oftentimes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I'm not,
Yep.
it's just the way things are. You
Right.
have to tell the story from the black perspective or perspectives to get
Right.
then those people who are interested and coming into movement to say that I feel that I belong here.
Yes. And sorry, and also to Real and Bass's credit, they've had this scholarship for many years,
Yes, okay. That you see
right?
again,
Yeah, like
ignorance
so
is bliss.
yeah, it's and I love the humility of the fact that people didn't know it. Like even they invited me to be a part of it. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing too. I don't want to be like, oh, look at me, look what I'm doing. But like
Hmm.
we just went through that process. So like I was kind of just beaming at just how rich how special the people were that put their names for this, right? And just it was a very
Well,
great
and
experience.
they should be very, very happy and grateful to have you on the selection committee.
Yeah, no, it's well, thank you, but they are, but yeah. So I mean, so they've been doing this, and so it's one of those things that it's not out there for look at what we're doing over here. So they do it, but they also want to be able to extend their reach in terms of people that are eligible for it, right? So
Yeah.
and then it was good. So the cross section of people who live locally to the building and people who live on the other side of the country, right? So
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
worked, right? So it was good.
No, grateful to Rail for doing that. I think that's and again, my ignorance. I didn't even know that that was in existence for a while. Certainly
Yeah,
something that I would look to for good models of application of
yeah,
this, because
exactly.
we still have few and far between. Again,
Well, yeah. Sorry, go
Misty's
ahead.
work has been. I'm sorry, Misty,
We're
that I'm
back to it.
saying you. I've said your name 10 times now. Maybe something magical will happen. Who knows? But her work has been absolutely pivotal,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
In terms of what Balanced Body has done and the fulsome. Fulsome's the wrong word, but the very complete work that they're doing.
Mhm.
The people again in the Global Pilates Alliance
Right.
organization that are
For
doing
sure.
similar things, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And making it accessible to and it's it's not important. It's what was the something that the old saying? It's not important that you do, but you're also seen to be doing as well too. Oftentimes that
Yeah,
visual seen to be doing and being in places and spaces, and that is just as important as the actual doing.
yeah. Sometimes, yeah,
But the
absolutely.
two have to exist,
Right.
right? If you seem to be doing, but it's all fake, that's the
That's the
house of
worst.
cards
Yeah,
that will fall down very, very quickly. And I think
yes.
that's what's happening a lot now. A lot of people wanted to be seen to be doing stuff,
Yep.
but their houses of cards are falling down like whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. But then the flip side is that like not letting your right hand know what your left hand is doing, right? Like there's another part of just doing it in silence and just making an impact. So
Right.
that's the part that
Exactly.
that's the part that always like earns my respect. I'm like, okay, I didn't know you're doing that for that long. Oh wow, that's in place. Who's the person behind that? I didn't know that person was behind that thing that was going on for, you know what I mean? Like when you
Hmm.
discover that there is a person of character behind something.
Martin, can you hear me? Your sound just went off. Can you hear me? Because your sound just went off there.
Yeah, and actually, I just got a
There,
call from my
gotcha.
son. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
it's a phone call from my son, so I'm gonna jump off and take that because he doesn't usually call me, uh, unless he needs something. So I double check on that. And we're at 56. So as always, Mr. Phils, thank you so much for.
Well, this was so impromptu. I wasn't planning to do this.
Man, I just took your whole hour away from you. You could have been
That's
cleaning
fine.
or.
I'm chill. I'm chill today. That's quite all
What?
right.
So my dad, Martin L. Reed, jump off here. Patrick. Thank you so much, Coach Robin, Renee, Adrienne, Carrie, Olivia. Yes, have a great weekend. Good stuff, everybody.
Happy
Happy
Canada
Canada
Day.
Day. Yes. All right, take care.
All right, take
All
care.
right,
Thanks,
sir.
Martin. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.